Yeah, I'm not sure if I think he just comes across and maybe he's a wonderful dude. I don't know. He just comes across as like, he's got it all figured out and he's going to tell you about it. And if you don't agree with him, you're an idiot. Is kind of the vibe that he gives off to me. That may not be accurate at all. That's just the vibe.
Yeah, I know what you mean. He can seem a bit holier than thou in some ways. And I would not necessarily I wouldn't call myself like a big Moby fan exactly, but I don't.
You are listening to Tape Spaghetti, the podcast about the twisted and tangled innards of the music industry. Some of this content may not be for all listeners or viewers, so if it's not for you, no harm, no foul. We'll just catch you on the next one. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go.
Welcome back to yet another episode of Tape Spaghetti. It gets harder and harder to say that every time. Tape Spaghetti. Spaghetti. We chose a difficult to pronounce title. I am Scott Marquardt. That is Blake Weiland. Tape Spaghetti.
Tape Spaghetti. It is oddly difficult to pronounce, even though it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be easier if either you or I were if we were any less Irish and any bit more Italian.
We need to get your lady in here. Maybe she can help us with the Italian side.
She could probably help. Mm-hmm. She'd do a good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I went to a football game this weekend, Blake.
Oh, well, I was just about to say, I'm excited to talk to you. What's been going on? You went to a football game?
Yeah.
Football
I went
in the American sense?
American football, yes. Okay. I've been to a soccer game more recently than a football game. I went to see my Vanderbilt Commodores, where I went to college, play Kentucky in the final home game of the season with some of my old buddies from college. And it's funny because I only live 8 miles or so away from the stadium, but I don't go back to where I went to school. So it was still kind of like a fun nostalgia trip in some ways.
When's the last time you've been back there?
To a football game, it would be 2013.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, at our last homecoming. The tradition at the time was the fourth year fifth, where you would drink a fifth of alcohol of your choosing and then go to the game. And I did that. And things got a little hairy. I recall that there was a very long line to use the bathroom at the stadium, as will happen at the stadium. And as it happened, the stadium is right next to the P.F. Chang's that I then worked at the time. And so I was like, well, I'll just go over to the P.F. Chang's. And I went in and I thought everything went totally fine. And then the next day, my manager at the restaurant was like, here is what I understood to have happened. You appeared dressed in a blazer with a lot of mustard on your blazer, which was off-putting to some, and appeared to be rather tipsy, and came in and used the restroom. I was like, that tracks. I don't remember the mustard, but I'll have to go back and check. And I was like, oh no, they're going to fire me. They did not fire me. I think they just needed the help at the time. Nothing happened.
I mean, to be fair, you could have done a whole lot worse than appearing slightly intoxicated and having mustard on your shirt.
That's what I felt. But at the time, I was like, oh no, I did a very bad thing.
Yes.
But I didn't roll through the restaurant and eat off people's plates as I was making my way or anything. So that would have been funnier.
You wanted to, though.
Maybe.
I mean, you're General Shao. You're not going to eat all that chicken in there. It's too much for you. Give me that.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that job. At the time, for one, most people at Vanderbilt don't work. I was one of two people that I ever really knew that had a job. But that's what happens when you have less money than the other people at the school.
Sure.
But the other people I knew, were like, oh, you got to work at cool, trendy restaurants or bars or whatever. And I'm like, man, all the money's in the chain restaurant right by the school, man. It's high volume. People come in, decent ticket size. Once I told people oh, I go to Vanderbilt and I'm, working my way through college, they would love that and tip real well.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention, you get some Honey Crispy shrimp sometimes. It's not half bad.
That is good. There are some. I worked at a lot of restaurants, and P.F. Chang's does a few things well. Mm-hmm. One, it is the most attentive to food allergies of any place I've ever been. They're on it. In terms of food allergies, you can trust that they've got your back.
That's nice
in terms of that. And two, at pretty much any restaurant you ever go to, like, you know, the food sits under a hot lamp and then like makes its way out to your table because one entree will finish and the other ones are like still kind of waiting. So if you ever get like, I always hate when you're at a restaurant and they're like, be careful, this plate's real hot. I'm like, oh, good. So it's been under the hot lamp for a very long time. And that's why the food tastes stale. But at PF Chang's, they were like religious, at least at this one. Like if anything sat under the hot lamp for more than, it was either 2 or 3 minutes, they would sell it. Like they would just tell us to give it to another table and they would refire so that wouldn't be stale. I've never seen anyone be as good at that. And it was sweet as a waiter because you would just be able to go to your table with it and be like, you know, compliments of the house. We thought you might like to try this other entree. And people love that. So that's always good money too.
You know, I'm going to be tipping heavy if you bring me an extra plate of anything.
Everyone does. You feel like you kind of have to pay that forward to the person who got it for you.
Yeah, 100%.
And they were selling, you know, free dishes like that all the time. I mean, multiple an hour.
It's not just at that location because I've had that happen at PF Chang's before. I make this sound like I've been to PF Chang's a lot. I've really probably only been, including the times we went at NAMM, maybe 10 times in my entire life. Like I've not been there like a lot. But I have been a recipient of some surprise dishes before, and I was quite a fan.
They know what they're doing. The other smart thing is those lettuce wraps, the dang lettuce wraps. Those things cost nothing because it's just the chicken scraps that don't make it into like the proper cubes to go into a dish. So that was just free. And they throw in some other stuff like some nuts and, you know, stuff that doesn't really cost anything. The cost on a lettuce wrap is like almost nothing. So they can give those out, you know, for free pretty easily. And if they don't, it's like pure profit. It's a smart move. They know what they're doing.
Nice. How can we sell some string scraps? Can we figure that out?
We've got them. If you can find a use, if you can get the biker stick and poke community into paying for them, we've got them.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe we could wrap them in lettuce and have people eat them. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. We'll get there.
But that's enough of me talking about me. What if I talk to you about something that isn't me?
Sure.
Something perhaps musical, maybe even a good story.
Is it a good story, Scott, or is it a creepy story? Or we've had all kinds of weird stuff lately. What are we getting into today?
Yeah, this one isn't too creepy, but it's still a fascinating story. I didn't know this story. I kind of picked it up from another article I was reading and then dug in deeper, and it actually got more fascinating. I didn't expect to talk about it. So we are talking about famed electronica artist Moby.
My favorite subject.
When you hear Moby, Blake, what is your like visceral response? How does that strike you?
Prior to social media, I would have said, I think of Christopher Walken dancing. That's what I would have told you.
That is not Moby. That's a Fatboy Slim song.
Oh, you're right. So I'm not even thinking of the right. I'm not thinking of the right person at all. You're right. I'm thinking of the completely wrong person. So then prior to social media, I wouldn't have thought of the right thing at all. And after social media, I would say the world's most annoying vegan. That's probably the first thing that springs to mind.
Moby, even back in the 90s, got a lot of hate. I have no problem with veganism,
by the way. It's not that. It's that he's annoying about it.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was like coming up, I remember Eminem hating on Moby, maybe before I even like knew much about Moby. He seems to be a fellow that's always been a bit of a heel and often been like a punchline to jokes for various reasons. I'm not exactly sure why. Some people just have that about him.
I'm not sure if I think he just comes across and this is, maybe he's a wonderful dude. I don't know. He just comes across as like, he's got it all figured out and he's going to tell you about it. And if you don't agree with him, you're an idiot is kind of the vibe that he gives off to me. That may not be accurate at all. That's just the vibe.
Yeah, I know what you mean. He can seem a bit holier than thou in some ways. And I would not necessarily I wouldn't call myself like a big Moby fan exactly, but I don't hate him either. There are some tracks that are good.
I'm sure that there's some things that would get me on the dance floor, which is not something anybody wants, but it might happen anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, also Moby's making electronica in like the 90s and 2000s. Electronica itself is like a weird dated term, but this is kind of the term of the time. And this is before like dubstep happened and electronic music became like a more kind of mainstreamish thing. Yeah. At the time, it's big in Europe and it's kind of nichey. in the US. And US people always feel weird about like that techno music.
It's over. Nobody listens to techno.
Exactly. That is the Eminem song that I'm referring to. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how it felt at that time, though that's very much changed to now.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my mind, going back, I remember hearing that line and kind of thinking, I mean, I love Eminem, but like thinking like, your music's heavily electronic too. Like, what are you talking about? It's not like you're sitting there playing the guitar. Not that makes music better or worse. It's just I thought it was an interesting dig, but I also didn't understand techno very well. So yeah, I still don't, to be fair.
I listen to a lot of electronic music and have listened to a lot of electronic music, but the like worlds that I'm in there would regard somebody like Moby as a bit of like a sellout. Okay. Like they would not appreciate Moby more than you. Okay. Either.
All right.
But there's kind of a cool story that I stumbled across in digging into this that all kind of centers on the lead up to and reception to Moby's album Play. So Moby's album Play is like the sort of apex of his career and was a huge album at the time. And that's probably when you would have heard of him for the first time. That's certainly the era in which like Eminem's cracking jokes, like he kind of matters. But it's a very interesting story to how it came about and almost didn't come about, and basically was a huge failure before it wasn't a failure.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
What year was this?
So I've got to scroll to find my.
I'm sure you have that. I'm just drilling you with questions already before the story even starts.
It was released in 1999.
Okay, that feels about right. Okay,
but it kind of built. It didn't really become like a popular thing until 2000, 2001. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's dig in, shall we?
Got my shovel. Let's go.
All right. So, Moby in the early to mid 90s is known as an electronic techno artist. He has like some minor club hits, like Go is a big one, and puts out a critically praised album called Everything Is Wrong in 1995. It doesn't get like massive airplay or anything like that, but he's well respected in this sort of world. And it seems like, he's just going to continue on the path that he ended up continuing on and become a pretty well-known electronic artist. Mm-hmm. But Moby himself swerves pretty hard from that timeline and almost kind of breaks the whole thing up. So in 1996, he puts out this album called Animal Rights, which you can imagine why he titled it that from your initial response of how you view Moby. He goes in to make this record. And again, he's like making clubby electronic music, like some drum and bass elements, some like ambient, elements and stuff song by song. And he decides that he's going to make an album that pays tribute to his like hardcore punk and metal roots back from the 80s. Mm-hmm. And Animal Rights, for the most part, is a hardcore punk album.
So maybe I'd actually like this record. I've never listened.
I don't know. Maybe not. It is, and I can't underscore this enough. It sounds nothing like what you think of when you think of Moby before that album or after that album.
Again, I might like this then. This sounds like you're hitting the right boxes here.
Yeah, it's very much like there's a few songs that kind of sound like classic Moby, if you will. But a lot of the songs on it are like heavy, aggressive, guitar driven, hardcore punk. So he basically just like out of nowhere decides I'm going to play in a completely different genre than I have been up to this point. And that did not go well.
Oh, okay.
It's not that the album is bad. And in fact, Moby says that he got a few different people reached out to him to tell him how important the album was to him, including Bono and Axl Rose. That just reached out to be like, I'm so happy you put this album out. It's an amazing album. I absolutely love it. But his fans tend to view it as kind of a slap in the face. It is such an about face. It is an extreme version of somebody going completely the other direction. And that's always hard, especially in the era where you can't sample stuff before you buy it. So like now with streaming and stuff, you might listen to it and be like, whoa, that's not for me. But you didn't like pay for it. But back then, if you're like, oh, I have this guy's first 3 albums, I love his whole thing, I can't wait to see what he does next, and then you go in with your hard-earned dollars and purchase this album and take it home, and are like, what in the heck is this? You feel like, very slighted.
If I'm looking for what I kind of view as classic Moby, and I end up with something more akin to Minor Threat, that's good for me, but probably not good for a Moby fan.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's generally tough to make an about face like that for anything, whether it's a brand or an artist or anything like that, because all the people that are familiar with you already, that's not what they came to the table for. So they mostly won't like it. And the people that would like the new thing that you're doing know you by your other name. And so they're like, oh, no, I would never listen to Moby. And so it just doesn't really work for anybody. That's why if you do it, you got to do the Chris Gaines thing. You got to invent a new persona with a nice swoop over haircut and put it out that way.
I agree. No, it's you joke, but I actually think that you're right. I think that from a marketing perspective is probably easier. It's easier to be like, hey, this is Moby's new project. I'm Mr. Hardcore. And it's not a Moby project, kind of saying like, this is Moby's side project would probably get more legs than just labeling it as that, which is kind of lame and speaks to how silly we are as humans, as consumers. But I think that would have been a better move just purely from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough thing to get right. I mean, like there are examples like, Beyonce made a country album and that worked. But it doesn't always work. So he alienates a lot of his existing fan base. That's never good because you spent a lot of years building up these people. And the label's kind of trying to push him more towards the rock and roll world since that's the thing he's doing now. And he's touring this like as a rock band, basically. Like he's playing guitar and he's a front man and everything. So the label sets him up on tour to open for the Red Hot Chili Peppers and then to open for Soundgarden. And when he's opening for Soundgarden, he's playing for like under 50 people a night. He recalls having stuff thrown at him on stage like frequently.
Wow. Okay.
Because again, I mean, the Soundgarden people have an association with Moby. They're like, boo, we don't like that. Why is he opening up for Soundgarden? Either I'm not going to go or I'm going to go and I'm going to heckle. No one's really giving him an earnest chance at making the kind of music that he wants to be making at this particular moment.
Interesting. I wonder if this was in a different time frame, like today. If this and I'm not saying this is a little bit hard to imagine, but let's pretend that Moby did the same thing right now. He got big with his first couple albums of electronic music and then made a hard right turn into hardcore punk. Would it have been as divisive? I kind of think no. I think today it's a little more accepted for artists to stretch their legs a bit. I don't think that's universally true, but I think it's better. That's
an episode unto itself. I think that music is less of a piece of people's identity than it was then, or at least like people are more open to it. Like it used to be like, if you're a punk, you're a punk. If you're doing metal, it's metal, rap, and all that. And so people didn't really like mix. It was like a piece of who you are. And now that's not the case. I mean, you see all sorts of albums coming out these days where it's like 15 different genres and 20 tracks.
And like you see people from the super, super pop world adopting, black metal imagery and stuff. It's become less of a thing. I think it's more of I think music itself is becoming more of the personality than the genre, but that is probably a subject for another day.
I think you're right. But this is all to say, this does not work for him. It's honestly a huge disaster. His US label Elektra drops him completely. His UK label Mute kept him, but they weren't delighted to. They just didn't really get around to dropping him exactly. And Moby in this time says he very seriously considered quitting music, and felt that whatever he might make next is probably going to be the last album that he makes.
Yeah, I can kind of understand. That's a pretty disheartening situation to be in.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. So he goes about making his next album, and honestly, like he's down. The sense that you get from him is that it's kind of a relaxed version of down. Like he doesn't feel the pressure. Like he's kind of in some ways given up, but is going to make an album. And so whatever he makes is whatever he makes.
Yeah, almost like I'm going to make kind of whatever I feel like making, and I don't really care what the results are because I'm probably done after this anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So in 1997, a journalist friend of Moby lends him the 4 CD box set of Sounds of the South, a musical journey from the Georgia Sea Islands to the Mississippi Delta, the famous Alan Lomax field recordings.
Oh, yeah.
And for listeners that aren't familiar, Alan Lomax, we will almost certainly do an episode on him someday.
We've got to.
But is this really interesting musicologist, chronicler that goes around in all of these places, especially in the American South. I believe he traveled more widely than that. Recording these folk songs that exist but are not necessarily like written down. Just this emergent sort of vocal tradition of folk songs that might otherwise have been lost had he not like gone out and captured them. Yeah,
that guy is responsible for a lot of things that are created today by catching that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So Moby becomes like totally obsessed with these recordings and is digging way into them. And a bunch of those a cappella recordings, he figures out like, oh, this is kind of perfect. I can sample these. I can put new electronic music underneath it. And it just has this really cool vibe. And that's what he does for a lot of what becomes the album Play. The song Honey is built around Bessie Jones' 1960 recording Sometimes. Natural Blues comes from Vera Hall's 1937 recording Trouble So Hard. Find My Baby samples Joe Lee's Rock by Boy Blue. And there's several other gospel versions. There's notably Run On contains the Johnny Cash did a version of this as well. It's like Tell Him the God's Gonna Cut You Down.
Oh yeah, it's a great
one. You know this?
Yeah.
That's on American 5, I believe. Yeah. I think the last one Johnny Cash did.
I think so.
Which is kind of crazy.
It's on the same. No, I think that's maybe 4 because I don't think that and Hurt are on the same record. It doesn't matter. It's
Hurt
one of those.
Was earlier, I thought. I don't think Hurt was on 5. I thought that was earlier.
We'll figure this out. The American recordings are probably worth an episode too, to be honest.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, those are all very, very cool. But he's pulling from a lot from the Lomax stuff and some just from other old folk song recordings and stuff that he's finding. So he begins to kind of record this in his studio on Mott Street in Manhattan. For the sense that I have is that this is maybe just his apartment, more than like it's called like a home studio, but I think it's probably like a couple guitars and some, synths and drum machines and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, he kind of finds this cool general sound of taking these old bluesy songs and then recording other stuff underneath them. So he's using like a couple of the famous Roland drum machines, the TR-909, 606, and 707. He's got some Akai samplers and generally like kind of a modest amount of synths and guitars that he's all kind of working in and layering underneath these old vocal samples. And stylistically, it's kind of this fusion of like electronica with some down tempo and ambient moments. There's a few like faster, like breakbeaty things with this like sort of pervasive gospel blues roots music thing that's happening. And there's a couple of tracks on it too that he does sing on as well.
Okay. Random sidebar that has nothing to do with anything. I occasionally laugh when I pull up my old solo record on Apple Music, the American Cyclops one, because it is labeled as down tempo. I think it would be more accurately described as no tempo. But whatever Apple Music seems to think it's a down tempo, which is, I'm not sure how they just decided that.
I thought that you had to like submit that. I didn't think they like chose.
That's what's
the
weird.
genre.
I like collect. When I did all the DistroKid stuff, that's not a category I selected that I can remember. And it's not labeled that on any other platform that I can tell. So
I miss the old MySpace band page genre list that you got to pick from.
Oh,
it was kind of specific. I remember that turntablism was one.
Turntablism was one. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what made it an ism. Like that seems to imply that there's a belief structure that revolves around the turntable and not just that you're.
You could
like,
argue that there is.
Maybe there is.
I'm a turntablist. We go to synagogue or whatever of the turntable. I don't know what it is. Anyway, I was gonna make a joke and it ended up not being funny, and I aborted it. So forget about it. Abort the mission.
You're just fine. You're just fine. And where were we? Anyway, so Moby's working on these sorts of tracks. And it's worth noting, like, this is the sampling and all the stuff that he's doing. It's kind of unusual. And you could make an argument that if he was trying to make something kind of right down the middle to definitely like win and chart and be a hit, he might not have gone that way. It is kind of an unusual mixture of stuff that follows in some ways his own taste. Got a little bit of hip hop in there, a little bit of roots, a lot of bit of electronica. A couple of like track specific notes. Honey is written in about 10 minutes based on that Bessie Jones sometimes. It's got like hand claps and break beats and slide guitar and cool stuff. Natural Blues, which is a well-known one. Moby really struggles to kind of mix this one. He nearly left it off the record, which would have been a big mistake because it was a pretty big hit. But he got some outside help to help kind of nail the mixing versions of it. He makes this song called Porcelain, which is this like melancholic ballad. It's in many ways very different from what I just described. It will later become like the biggest hit off the record worldwide. But he's doing his own singing. There's like a reverse string texture thing happening throughout it. He really didn't like that track from most reports and had to be kind of talked into keeping it on the album. There's a lot of this. There's like just various, without going through all of them, there's various notes that come up of like, he didn't like that song and didn't think it should be on the album, but then people were like, no, it's good. You should keep it on. So you do get the sense both that he's like coloring outside the lines of what he might normally otherwise do, but also that he's like kind of unsure about it all in some ways, in the way that you would feel after having just created like a massive critical and commercial failure.
Right. It's interesting, though, how many tracks are on this? Because it sounds like almost every other one, he was like, and he almost didn't put that on the record.
There's a lot of tracks on the record. It's a pretty thick record, but yes, that definitely happens. I mean, some of these are like the more oddball ones, like Body Rock's one too, where there's like a lot of hip hop going on and it kind of doesn't fit. It's a strange one, and there's a lot of notes about him like not liking the mix on things and needing somebody else to mix it, which I find kind of curious. I feel like he probably knows how to mix a track pretty well.
I would think so.
But anyway, my this guy's interpretation is that, you're kind of seeing an artist who's unsure of themselves at this moment and is just not really sure what to do with it all. Right.
It's interesting, too, the fact that we're getting the vibe that he kind of was feeling like free to create, but at the same time, a lot of questions were there as well, which is got to be a weird feeling to have those two juxtaposition, those two emotions kind of opposed to each other.
Yeah, it's strange. Those are the two like major strands that I'm picking up from this time, and it's a little bit hard to square those in some ways, but I guess I can kind of understand it a little bit. So basically, over this 2-year period, he comes up with enough tracks and kind of feels that there's enough to coalesce into an album, and he puts it together as what kind of would become Play. And it's like, all right, well, let's put this out again. What might be my last album ever, whatever. We're going to throw it out there. So they go to try to shop it to a few labels. The labels don't want it because the last one was a massive failure. So no one has forgotten about that, even though it's been about 3 years. Labels don't want to pick it up. He's still on mute in the UK. And so when they launch the album, it launches only in the UK, actually.
Okay.
By mute. So that's May 17th, 1999 that it comes out in the UK. It doesn't sell well. It sells about 6,000 copies worldwide in its very first week, which is not a lot of copies.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of copies today. It's definitely not a lot of copies in 1999.
Yeah. That's pretty... Just to put things in context, because most people are not sure what that even means anymore. Like, this was still in the era of people buying records. We got to like focus on that a little bit, because
people are selling hundreds of thousands of CDs in a week or more.
Yeah. So 6,000 is bad. I mean, that's like, I'm just starting out, and I don't know. It's hard to put into context, and because today's so different. But yeah,
for somebody that's had some hits and stuff like that is not a good sign. They are still. I don't know how they manage this, but they're able to convince V2 Records, which is Richard Branson's new record label at this time, to put it out in the U.S. And maybe it's because this is kind of like a Virgin. This is his new record label. Maybe he's looking for people one way or another. But yeah, it actually made it up to 33 on the UK albums chart, even with that kind of low performance early on, but then just like falls pretty precipitously. It didn't chart in the US at all when it came out. He starts doing some in-store performances, the usual kind of cycle to promote it. So the first one is in the basement of New York's Virgin Megastore. Again, Richard Branson, Virgin. Yeah. It drew about 40 people.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Like if I drew 40 people, that I'd consider that a huge success, but he has actually had legit mainstream stuff happening in his career. So this is like a big fall off.
Yeah. A decade in, some hits under your belt, having opened for RHCP and Soundgarden. One would expect more than that. I mean, again, like Bono and Axl Rose reached out to be like, we love the last record.
Right. Yeah. He was somebody at this point.
Yeah.
So,
but that is radio and MTV, as you would imagine, completely ignore the record. It just doesn't. It doesn't really break into anything, and it basically looks like it's going to follow animal rights as leading Moby into obscurity.
Interesting. So he's got to be really like, I'm done with music. This is it. I don't want to do this anymore. Like it's got to be kind of an extra, just like kick in the face on top of the last record.
Yeah, I mean, he's broke at this point. Like, he's not really made any money in several years from his music. Reputation is kind of shaky. The labels aren't super supporting him. Again, as U.S. labels, like, we'll take it, I guess.
Yeah, we need something. So okay.
Yeah, and so in a lot of senses, it's almost like, all right, well, we tried. Let's call it a day.
Yeah. Interesting.
And that's the end of the episode.
I was going to say, and I assume we're just wrapping it up there. Okay. See you later, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this one.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not the end of the episode. Sorry.
Oh, just kidding.
I appear to have a few more notes here. So,
I was going to say, you said it was an interesting story. So far, not so interesting.
Not that interesting, is it? Yeah. So, Moby's management comes up with a plan at this point. That's a brilliant plan. Honestly, one of the better plans in the history of music business. So they're looking at it.
This kind of stuff gets me excited. I'm ready for this.
Yeah, they're looking at it and they're saying, all right, we're not getting any radio play. We're not getting, the critics aren't paying attention to it. MTV isn't putting it on. No one's going to have us out to open for them on a tour because, we got tomatoes thrown at us in front of Soundgarden, for all this time. What do we do? We've got this album. We believe in it. How do we get earballs onto the album?
And this is kind of the early stages of people knowing what the internet was. So that wasn't exactly a full blown option either, I'm assuming.
Not really.
Yeah.
All the traditional channels are basically saturated. Like they didn't work for them. It's not really working. So they had to think outside the box. And that's what led them to think about licensing the music, specifically as a means of promoting the music.
Okay.
Which had never, you could argue, had never really been done before. So there's some things about this music that really work for syncs and for licensing. A lot of it has like these little cut up, versions, like I said, of the Alan Lomax recordings and stuff. There's vocals on it. You can tell there's a human there, but it doesn't like always mean anything. He's not pasting the whole song in there. So it's a lot of little choppy samples. So it kind of leaves it up to interpretation in terms of what it means. It's mostly vibes is what's going on there, which is really nice because if you're a music supervisor syncing something to a movie, it can be really awkward when somebody's a little too on the nose. You ever like watch a movie or a TV show or something and they're like, fishing a body out of the creek and the song is just like, when we were fishing the body out of the creek. You're like, no, that's weird. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You can speak to the vibe of it without like just calling out.
The bank while they're robbing the bank. Yeah, it's
exactly.
Like, we don't need that.
It's not generally frowned upon to be too on the nose. And the tracks off this album are not going to do that. They're generally just not specific enough in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of cool like vibes. He's got like some cool like ambient stuff and general like down tempo beats and stuff like that. So it's the kind of stuff that could really work.
Yeah.
So initially, from what I could tell, it seemed like that interest started to come from the ad agencies and music supervisors first. And the managers were the ones to smartly be like, we've had a couple of bites on this. Like, not like hundreds, but some. That's really the only people that are reaching out wanting to do anything with this music at all.
Mm-hmm.
What if we like go hard in the paint at just that particular approach?
Right. And then that also gets some earballs on it because people are watching the movie or the commercial and they might go, what's that? What is that? I need to know more.
Yeah, Moby has a quote about it. He said, the only interest we received was from people who wanted to license the music for advertisements, TV, and movies. And we kind of just said yes to almost everything because it was the only sort of interest we were getting. So that becomes their strategy. We just say yes. Because a lot of times, typically bands, so like this depends. In some settings, some people have like perpetual forms of licenses where they can just use something and then they have to pay you a royalty, but they don't need your permission to do it. Radio, streaming, streaming for the most part, functions like this. MTV had a license kind of a lot like this that they could just use stuff because it kind of functionally was a bit of a radio station and a bit of a, a TV application. Side note, MTV, at least like back when I was managing bands, still were under that agreement that they made. So typically, if I wanted to use, your song in a TV show, I would need your permission and I would need to pay you some money, probably at least a few $1,000s and maybe much more, depending on the circumstance. MTV was like, we're not going to do that while we're airing music videos. That's ridiculous. That's too much money. The whole thing is just your music video and it's good for you too. Come on. So they struck a deal where it's like they paid you like a couple hundred, like $100, $200, something like that. It was pretty low, as I recall.
Right.
And so the funny thing was when MTV stopped doing music videos and pivoted into all being like reality TV or scripted stuff, just like anything else, they still had that license. So like The Hills or Laguna Beach or whatever the heck would use our band's stuff. And they could just use it and then they'd pay us like $100. We're like, hey, what the? No, why do you get to do this so cheap?
I mean, that's smart on their end. Like, hey, look, this is what our deal is. So
yeah. You didn't say like the deal was contingent upon it only being the music video. So
yeah, you didn't specify the content. So, I mean, it's kind of dirty. Don't get me wrong, but it's also kind of smart.
Yep, just the way it works. So anyway, this becomes the strategy for Moby and his team. They go out kind of hunting specifically for some particular placements and things like that. Basically, they're not managing a tour like other stuff like that. So they're just like focusing all their energy on let's get syncs, baby, all day long. And they become kind of known for being not difficult. Like they're going to let you use it.
That makes sense.
Again, for every like sync you hear in a movie and you're like, oh, wow, what a cool sync, that they did. They might have gotten no's from 3 other people. That might have been like option number 4. There's a real question as to what's going to get cleared.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I think with the Moby people, as a music soup, you're like, oh, I know for sure that they're going to say yes to that. So I don't have to get 3 backups. I can actually feel good about it.
And like this fits the vibe. Maybe it doesn't even fit the vibe perfectly, but I know they're going to say yes. And I'm going to have to not jump through a bunch more hoops to get it. But you're going to get more work that way. It's just like the actor who says yes to everything. It's like, he'll do it.
Totally. And again, in this era too, bands are still considering a lot of these types of placements as like selling out. And Moby's like, nope, I've got nothing to sell.
Yeah. No one else is buying it. So I got to sell it where it's being bought.
Yep. And so basically this operation they develop around getting these syncs and getting it all licensed amounts to like the most substantial and significant sync getting effort that has ever existed up to this point. They are like so hot on this. They're like the first people to be like, this is our strategy. We're going to push really hard. So they got, by some counts, over 400 different like sync placements for this stuff. Every single song was licensed. Multiple of them were licensed in multiple places. They didn't do exclusive licenses on basically anything that I could tell. They're just like, yes, you can have it, and we're going to give it to them, and we're going to give it to them, and we're going to give it to them too. I have like a non-exhaustive list of some of these.
All right, let's go.
So Honey is synced on Permanent Midnight, the 1998 film, The 13th Warrior, the 1999 film, and is in a Maxwell coffee commercial in 1999.
I remember Find 13th Warrior. That's a throwback. That was a fun movie.
Wow. Well, there's more. Find My Baby is in an American Express commercial that features Tiger Woods. Porcelain, which is a big hit later, is in a Bailey's Irish Cream commercial. It's in a Volkswagen Polo commercial. It is in Nordstrom's Doorway campaign, and it's famously in the Danny Boyle film The Beach from 2000, which is a weird rewatch. If you're ever, it's strange. The editing. I like
Danny Boyle, but I've never seen that one. I don't think
it's with Leo DiCaprio. I watched it a couple years ago and I didn't make it through. It's probably good, but the editing is very Y2K. They're trying to do a lot.
I might like it then. I have a lot of nostalgia for that time.
Yeah. Why Does My Heart Feel So Bad is in the trailer for Black Hawk Down in 2001. Body Rock gets a Rolling Rock beer commercial. It's on Dawson's Creek and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's on the soundtrack for FIFA 2001.
I'm just a child right now. I'll be like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yes. Thank you.
Come to my house where Buffy the Vampire Slayer is always playing by my wife.
Is it really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow. I'm coming to your house.
Oh, yeah. Which one did I just did? That was Body Rock. Natural Blues is in a Hewlett Packard commercial. It's in a Renault Scenic car commercial. It's several different films and trailers. Run On is in a Nissan commercial. It's in a Maxwell House coffee commercial, as well as other campaigns. Ever Loving is in a Thornton's commercial. The Sky is Broken is in a Galaxy commercial. Other ones are in everything from, car makers to home appliance manufacturers, numerous independent and budget films. They're everywhere. And as someone who like one of the bands I managed, they got, it was a Nissan commercial, and that made the whole year make sense. I don't know if I can say what it was for, but it was for tens of thousands of almost $100,000, which in 2012, I think it was, is a ton of money. Especially for a band that doesn't make a lot of money. So getting any one thing is huge for artists. That's usually the oh my God, I got a $50,000 check. They are just getting them from everywhere. It is absurd to me to read through this list and be you had 39 different major corporate commercials that you got the stuff into. That's nuts.
That is crazy.
Absolutely crazy. The very final song, 7, was the last one to get licensed. And it's not maybe the best. It's not a bad song, but it's not the most fitting for license purposes, which is why it was the very last one. So his manager, Barry Taylor, recalls a British TV show, a small one, faxed over asking to use 7, the last unlicensed track on the album. And he said that they celebrated.
Hooray!
Yeah, they're we
got them all.
And of note, Moby himself, I don't know how true this is, but it's what he said, has said that most of the deals weren't especially lucrative. They were often somewhere in the mid 4 figures or so. So that was, I think, part of it too, is they're we're definitely going to say yes. We're not going to ask for a lot of money. So come on over and take our music and put it in your commercial. Please.
Yes. Or your indie film that has no money to give us anyway.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's a lot of it. That's hundreds of indie films that, don't have a lot of money, and they'll probably give it to you for $1,000 or something. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the thing though is, even though some of this stuff didn't pay that much in one big chunk, I'm sure some of it did. I'm sure there were some fat paydays sprinkled in there, but some of it didn't pay all that much. When you've already put the work into something, and you've already exhausted every other avenue, and somebody's hey, I'll give you $1,000 if I can use this piece of it, I feel you're silly to say no unless it's for some purpose that you vehemently disagree with. If it's I don't care if you use it to sell coffee. I like coffee. That's fine. Whatever. You're going to use something. I might as well wet my beak off the work I already did. It's a really interesting strategy that they just went full blown into it. And I don't know that has it been replicated? Has anybody else done this that you know of?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. The Black Keys are a band.
But I didn't know they did it as part of their strategy.
I don't. Yeah, not in the same way. That was part of their strategy in the touring doesn't make a lot of money. No one's buying albums anymore. This is the only way that we can really make a lot of money. That the Moby strategy specifically of like, we are going to use commercials like radio, right, is fairly unique to me. That's their thing, is that they just want it to be reach all over. They want everywhere you go, you to be hearing this stuff. And so the sync stuff does start, I kind of just dished it all as though it had all happened, but it starts a little bit smaller and the word kind of gets out to more and more placements. And so from like 2000, 2001 is when they're getting like the big car commercials, the Volkswagen, Nissan, and then like Rolling Rock, Galaxy Chocolate. Those are pretty high profile ad buys that are getting a lot of money behind them. So they're all over. That's when he's getting these high profile film placements, like the porcelain placement in The Beach is a really big one. So it's kind of really, really building as we get into 2000 and 2001. And again, reminder, the album came out, back in May of 1999. So we're pretty deep on the album cycle at this point, but it starts to work. More and more people are just like, oh, that's that song from the commercial. Or like, what's that song in that commercial? I like that song. Yeah. Oh, it's Moby from the album Play. Maybe I'll buy a copy.
So it had the back end effect as well.
It very much did.
The syncs themselves. Okay.
No, and that was totally the strategy the whole way through. So as this is all kind of happening, and as more and more TV and movies and stuff are pushing it, more and more people are hearing it, starting to wonder who he is, buying the album, and all of these things. They always have a bit of a flywheel effect to them, where more and more people start hearing it, they start telling people, and they're like, oh, it's from that commercial. Or maybe you want to seem smart, and you're like watching TV with somebody. You're like, that the song in that commercial is by this artist Moby, an emerging electronica artist. Yeah, I happen to have the CD right here.
Here it is. Yeah. So that one with Christopher Walken dancing it. No. That's Fatboy Slim.
Not that guy. That's Fatboy Slim. So as this is happening, the album starts to creep back up in terms of sales. It actually creeps back into the UK charts in early 2000, and eventually it creeps its way all the way to number one, spending 5 weeks at number one. Yes.
So this is 2 or 3 years after it got released?
This is 2000. So this is like towards the end of the next year. So like, in the 12 to 16 month era, it ended up staying on the UK chart for the rest of the year, ending as the 5th best-selling album of 2000. In the US, it peaks around 38 on the Billboard 200, but that is still, the US is a big country. That is enough to sell a lot of units. It surpassed over 2 million copies sold in the US during this period, which is a lot.
And it's certainly better than the 0 placement that it got the first time it was, or when it was initially released.
Yeah, very much so. Worldwide, it sells eventually over 12 million copies. And it remains to be cited as the widest sold electronica album of all time.
Weird. It's so crazy to me to think that it was basically a flop. And then it goes on to have this kind of success. That's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. And there becomes some blowback to it, as you would imagine. I mean, like even nowadays, like when the Black Keys did stuff like this, they got a lot of blowback. But that we were more used to bands selling stuff on syncs. At this time, it's a little bit weird. The Guardian runs a piece titled Moby licenses every track on Play. Kerching! Framing it as a new era of music for ads. And of course, people are calling him a sellout all over. Moby himself pushes back a lot on this, as he is, as you noted, want to do in a public way, and explains, most of the uses were for indie films, small TV shows, nonprofits, and really kind of highlights like how it wasn't just like to sell out and make a lot of money. This is the only way that we can get any attention on the album.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's wrong at all for doing that. I have very much changed my stance on quote unquote selling out. I think if you can get paid for making art and you're not doing so in like support of something that compromises your morals, you're not selling out. Like the moment that you are like taking money, even though you don't feel like you should because of whatever reason, this is a cause you don't support or a politician you don't like or a company you have problems with. And it really like you feel that that's when it's selling out. But if you're like, hey, somebody wants to give me money for something I made and it hurts no one, give me that money, baby. That's not a sellout to me. That's how I view it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where where it's moved. That's where like public opinion has kind of moved over time, mostly because bands don't have other ways of making money, really.
True.
I mean, they do, but like it's difficult. And syncs are like a guaranteed paycheck from a big corporate brand. That's like, here you go. Here's $100,000.
I know with some of the modern Western genre of TV that's come out lately, a lot of artists are celebrated when it's like, hey, I got a song in Landman,
Yeah.
Like people are like, woohoo, great job. And then in the past that would have been like, oh, so you're selling out to the man, huh? But now it's like, cool, you did it.
Very much so. And I do think like Landman's a good example. I think like my in-laws and people like that, like do listen to, they'll be like, oh, what's that song? Also Shazam exists now.
That's true.
So it's a heck of a lot easier to like, I have found songs that I've just heard on a movie and been like, what was that? I have to know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it a lot easier. One kind of side note to this overall story, and then I'll loop back with it. The song that I knew from this album back in 2001 or 2000 when it came out was the song Southside. Do you remember Southside?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, here we are now going to Southside. Yeah. So the version of that I remember is Gwen Stefani. It's Moby and Gwen Stefani both singing, but it's like heavily features Gwen Stefani's voice. Interestingly, that I didn't know this until I kind of went back to it. That is not the version of that song that is on the album Play.
Oh, no? Is that just the one that was on the radio?
Yes. So what happened was the original one that's on the album has Moby singing the vocals himself without any Gwen Stefani. It's like structurally the same song. It's a longer mix too. It's a more ethereal, longer mix. Sort of thing. He recorded with Gwen Stefani in like 98, 99 during the original sessions. But apparently he can never really get like the mix just right. It just didn't, it wasn't good enough for him to kind of want to make that the official version. So he dropped it. But along the way, now that, this album went from like selling 6,000 copies and being a second flop in a row to, oh my God, it's selling like hotcakes and this music is everywhere and you can't escape it. They go back to that version. They get somebody else to come in and do a mix of it that everyone likes. They shorten the song up, make a super radio friendly version of Southside with Gwen Stefani, who's a big name at the time, and put that out as, it's actually the 7th single, but it becomes the biggest single because the album does kind of lack like a traditional radio single, hence this whole strategy. But not now, not once you bring the Gwen Stefani take in and then mix it and tighten it and shorten it up for radio. So this becomes a big hit. It hit number 14 on the US Billboard Hot 100. And this amazes me that like once the least like hit song album ever comes out, and then once the album starts like selling a lot, they are able to like manifest a hit out of it in some ways that isn't even on the album.
It's like, wait, the album's doing great. Our name's everywhere. We need a single. Well, there isn't. What? I don't know. Chop this up. Make it work.
Yeah,
make
turn it into a single. Oh my God, Gwen Stefani recorded something on it. Jesus Christ, clean it up. Enhance. Enhance.
Yeah, we will find somebody to mix this. Okay, we've got people.
Exactly. We will hire a team of scientists to like tune every vocal artifact. Since you recorded it on SM58 in your bedroom or something.
Yeah, we will run this through multiple Neve consoles if necessary. We'll make it happen.
We'll do it. We've got them. We've got them in the storeroom behind us.
That's right.
So anyway, it's a wild story. I mean, this in many ways is like, it's definitely like the first like advertising rock album. And arguably like the most heavily advertised album to this day, even though it's gotten a lot more competition in recent years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes you wonder how many people saw this happen and were like, oh man, what a great idea. We should have done that. Or we're going to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, it's one of those things, once you get to the scale they got to, once you have it to where this thing is in 400 placements, you're riding off the ad dollars from big brands. You've got it's in movies. It just the music's everywhere now. It's just all over. You hear it in all these different places, and that's how you gain fans. There's just enough people out there that once they've heard the same song 10 times, they're like, what is that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Either because they like it or hate it, but some chunk of them will buy it.
Yeah, that's the thing is there's so many people with so many different tastes and flavors that they like. Like if you can cast a wide enough net, you're going to catch some super fans.
Yep, you super are. It's just the way it works. So they make a lot of consistent money from the licensing. Probably enough that even if the album sales didn't do what they did, it would have been pretty decent. I know that like Moby's always like, oh, it wasn't really that much money. It was like mostly mid 4 figures. But I'm like, hey man, I mean, for one, several of those were big car commercials, and so even if you were selling it to them for cheap, they were paying you good money, like tens of thousands, I would generally assume.
Personally, I'd like to get mid 4 figures for anything that I've written.
This is what I'm saying.
Great.
Exactly. If you're like, oh, we only got like 5,000 a piece, and you're like, and then you did that 400 times. I would like 400 stacks of $5,000.
Yeah, I could make some interesting things happen with that.
That is, and this is true, $2 million.
Yes,
which is a lot.
It's a lot of money, especially back then.
But it doesn't end there because, again, the album goes on to sell 12 million copies. And not just that, but the album was recorded on a shoestring budget in his apartment in Manhattan because
so there's nothing to recoup.
Yeah, basically any advance. I don't know. Probably if he got an advance, it was just so he could eat and pay rent at the time, seemingly. They didn't do any big marketing push, obviously, because it didn't work early on. So the marketing, which was pervasive in a massive marketing campaign, they were paid for the marketing by the people doing the marketing for them.
Yes. It's
brilliant. They got paid $2 million in marketing plus, achieved, hundreds of millions of impressions, 1 billion impressions, more maybe. I don't know, a crazy amount of it. And then it goes on to sell 12 million with that expense profile underneath it. The thing was a cash cow. And I'm sure that worked out well for Moby and his managers, the labels too. I don't know what chunk Mute had and what chunk got given up to V2 once they came on in the US, but they looked very smart for picking up this album.
They did.
Yeah. It worked really well. And
aren't we geniuses? We knew this was going to happen.
Yes. I believed in it all along.
All along. I knew.
Yeah, that's what you tell your boss when you're going for the promotion after it all worked out.
Yeah, you're like, well, really, it's me who's responsible for this.
Yep. And, it's funny to me because Moby is like a lightning rod. He kind of was then, like we noted at the beginning of the episode, people like to poke fun of him or whatever. And even now he seems to get into controversial things online. But this is also this is an incredibly controversial way to promote an album. I think many to most artists would be like, no, this is my art. I don't want to sell it off to Maxwell House and Hewlett Packard and, all these other things to push crap. And it does take both a brilliant strategy from the managers, but also it takes the right musician to be like, give it to him. I don't care. Put it in every single advertisement anywhere.
Well, and as you noted, it takes the right kind of music. If Metallica tried to do this, we talk about Metallica a lot on this. We probably sound like the biggest super fans, but
we do, don't we?
We do bring up Metallica a lot. But if they tried to do this, their music doesn't work as universally as Moby's does. It just doesn't. You're not going to be, putting Creeping Death in a Maxwell House coffee commercial. Sweet. Most likely.
That'd be an amazing Maxwell House commercial.
Holy shit. Actually, Maxwell House, if you're listening, you should do that.
You should totally do that. Yeah. I can you can totally tie in that death is behind every corner to enjoy your cup of coffee this morning. It might be your last.
It might be your last one.
I think that works great. That makes me want to drink a cup of coffee.
Quick, get me the Maxwell House.
And make sure it's mid to bad coffee too. I don't want any of that good frou-frou stuff. No.
Don't even go to Folgers. We're going to go Maxwell House.
We were a Maxwell House family. I was weaned on Maxwell House.
Were you? All right.
That's it. And look how I turned out.
I've had more than one cup of Maxwell House in my mouth at some point. So I'm with you.
At the same time?
It was
I thought that's what you were going to say.
double fisting.
Just pouring out in each hand.
Well, I saw this great commercial.
Do that on the video.
Oh no, someone's going to get that clip. That's bad.
Well, anyway, that is what I have to. I look like a Maxwell House cup right now, don't I, with the yellow hat? That is what I have to say about Moby's play. It is, in fact, a good album to listen to. For me, like I like the Lomax sample stuff more in some ways than I like Porcelain or the other kind of vibey ambient stuff. Southside is a legitimate good song. If you haven't heard it in 20 years and you liked it then at all, give it a listen. It's good. I did before this episode and it was like, this song is good. I understand why this was a hit.
I was lukewarm on it 20 years ago, but my tastes have changed a little bit. So I'm going to give it another go.
It's worth a try. It's what you think it is, but it's good. But yeah,
I just remember being slightly upset when it would come on because I was really hoping that System of a Down would be the next thing that would play on the radio, but it would be Southside, you know.
I forgot about that. That's a really good point. That was like what it was like to listen to music and you're like, please let it be like one of these couple of songs that I really like right now. And then you're like, it's always Lenny Kravitz's again. It's always Lenny Kravitz's again.
Or John Mayer's Daughters.
Oh God. We talked about like doing the most overplayed songs at some point. Daughters, I could never hear Daughters. I mean, it's a sweet song. Like
it's not
you
a
can
bad
see
song
why
at
it's
all.
a hit.
Yeah. I just have heard it enough.
Plenty.
I never chose to hear it either.
No,
John's got a lot better music. I'll just if that's the only song you've ever heard from John Mayer, he's got a lot better stuff. Go check some of that out.
I just like the trio stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Trio stuff's good.
It's really good. It's really good.
So anyway, that was my story today. I thought it was pretty interesting. I just got led into this. I remember the syncs and all that, but I didn't quite, once I saw the whole story, I was like, oh, I think this would actually make a pretty cool episode. It's an interesting story of somebody almost not making music ever again and then putting something out and then that being a failure. And then, oh wait, it's not a failure. And then, it was the opposite of a failure. It was a massive success.
Massive success. Probably his biggest success.
Oh yeah, by far. By a lot.
That's how we know that name Moby. So there you go, everybody. There's the story of Moby's play as told by my friend Scott. Good job, buddy. Thank you for the information. I actually was that was way more interesting than I thought it was going to be when you first teased me with what we were talking about.
You were like, oh, screw this. I'm out of today.
I was like, oh, great. Here we go to talk about something I don't want to talk about.
I wouldn't do you wrong.
It was very interesting. And I think I gained a new respect for Moby and his team through this episode. So thank you for that. That was cool. All right, everybody. Thank you for checking this out. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to somebody you think would love it. Drop us a comment, leave us a 5-star, all that good stuff. It really does move the needle in a big way. And there are a lot of you watching this on Spotify or listening to this on Spotify. And if you could go ahead and hit that little star, that would really help us out. We need some more of those. That will push more and more people to be able to find it. And there are like literally hundreds of you checking this out every week. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving us your time. And we'll talk to you on the internet very, very soon.